but I'm not naturally good enough to go out there and win 2
Are you
championships.
saying you study?
I have to. I have to. I feel like I have to work harder than other drivers to be good, just to be competitive, right? I mean, I look at the picture behind me, this one here, when when I drove the 20 car, right? If I had enough God-given talent, I wouldn't have got fired from that job. Okay? Right? Like,
You
I
were
was
thrown to the
I
wolves,
wasn't
though.
good
You were
enough.
not ready.
Right, I wasn't ready because I wasn't good enough, right? Like, if I was that special, I would have just figured it right out.
Timing and circumstances.
Yeah, so, overall, it all worked out really well, and I learned a lot of lessons throughout all that, but that's when I realized I gotta go to work to, like, get better. I gotta really practice and work at my craft and the little details that make a really good race car driver.
So there's always audibles. I always remind everybody that this conversation is not perfectly organized. Do you leave that picture behind you up there on purpose? I mean, that was your first cup win. We all remember it. Uh, you've won so much with Roger Penske. Why is that picture up there?
Well, I have other ones over here too. That's what they tell me.
Okay, there we go. There we go.
But
I
I
love it.
that one, and so that was actually at Pocono, that wasn't New Hampshire, and
Oh,
I
it's
kinda see
Pocono.
that
Okay.
as my first win personally, because New Hampshire kinda came in a rain delay and kind of a weird thing,
Yeah.
uh, but that weekend there was one of the most stressful the most emotional weekends, I guess I could say I went through because that whole week going into it is where it became pretty public that Matt Kenseth was taking over the 20 car. I had a lot of questions about it. We happened to show up, put the thing on the pole, and race Mark Martin for the win. And that was my second win and the first time I won in 3 years. Uh, and I was looking for a job, right? At that moment, I was like, that was when I was thinking, will I be a race car driver anymore? What am I going to do? Because all my eggs were in one basket. It was to be a race car driver since I was a little kid. And that was the moments in my life where I was like, "Uh-oh, I don't have a failed plan here." Like, and it's about
This
to
is an
happen.
incredible story.
And so that was just so and like so that race, there's not a more important race in my career than that one right there. And it's probably not known to everyone. Everyone probably think championship weekends or getting into the championship four, those type of things are larger, but those don't happen without that win there. So that's why I keep it up there, because it was a tough one. That
Thank
was
you.
kinda to me shows just the growth pattern that I needed to go through, the failures that I needed to go through to grow, and the mistakes I needed to make to grow, and it all kinda came to that moment right there that really changed my life, that gave me an opportunity at Penske.
This is something that children, teenagers need to hear because Joey Logano uh, is an incredible NASCAR Cup driver. He's looked up upon, and that picture, this was a turning point in your career. So you're thinking you set quick time, uh, you won the race right there at Pocono, and yet during this whole time, you're like, I'm fired, I don't have a job, and in your mind, you had to rule all that out. So the question bears, did you get this mental toughness from your mother, your father, grandma, grandpa? Because I feel like there's another conversation here in a little bit about that. How were you able to focus on that weekend, knowing that the guy coming for your seat, you're racing him, you're upset, you're hurt.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Your
you
mom,
can't
your dad,
you can't hide from it, right? Probably my dad.
yeah, he's
Well,
a badass.
my dad's a tough dude.
Yes,
Uh,
he is.
and I think you gotta try to compartmentalize things in your life, and you can't hide from it. It was happening, right? Like, I couldn't run from it, couldn't hide from it. People were talking about it. It's coming up in every conversation. It just keeps happening. And it was happening, right? Like, it's all true, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
and so you can't hide it from it, but then you also gotta focus in and do the job, and you don't want to try too hard to where you wreck, right? Like you over try, and everyone's been part of that, where you try too hard and then you end up putting too much pressure on yourself and you fail miserably, right? Like you
Your
don't want
maturity is showing up right now. Most
it.
kids that age wouldn't think like that.
Yeah, and sometimes you just got to get in and just go do what you know how to do. And the timing of it was good. Obviously, I had a good car that weekend. Everything kind of worked out perfectly. But yeah, it was the hardest moments of my life. Those 3 years there, where I thought I drank the Kool-Aid, man. Like I thought I was the man growing up. I was the youngest in everything. I was winning everything. And I was like, yeah, I am really, really good. And everyone was
And you
telling
were.
when you're 15, 16, and Mark Martin's saying you're the next thing to make it and you're coin sliced bread. And there was commercials before I made my first Xfinity start, just of me growing up and about like the the moment I'm going to start my first race and how big it's going to be. And then I won my third Xfinity race in Kentucky, and I'm like, yeah, I am good. Like I believe it. And then I got to the cup level, and it was just like getting beat into the ground.
They're all really good.
And I never lost before. Like I didn't even know how to lose. I didn't even know what it was about. And I was like, this is awful. And so getting through that like trench of learning how to lose, learning how to get better, really having to work on my craft because I never had to do that before. I didn't have to work on my craft before. I was just good. And then everybody else was good. And I'm like, oh, I suck. I got a lot of work to do. And so it's kind of accepting that and working at it. And it kind of eventually kind of come to that moment there.
And this is the way the Kenny conversation goes. I'm finally going to get to my very first question. Uh, you know what I mean? Here we are. Here we are, 20 minutes into Kenny conversation. That's kind of where I wanted to start. So, in my mind, I remember everything about you. And you're right. It was Mark the Kid Martin out of Batesville, Arkansas, who was in your shoes. I'm a lot older than you, but Mark was a natural talent too. His dad, Julian Martin, is like, oh my God, Mark Martin wins everything at 12 and 13 years old, driving full blown big cars. And it was Mark that told us all. Mark Martin shouted it from the rooftops. There's this kid coming. His name is Joey Logano. Tell me about that time when Mark put you on the national radar. And we all said, who is he? Where's he at? Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was a rain delay in Dover. And this is when Mark was retiring the first time. Right? It was like,
Yeah, right.
this is
You're
the first time.
retiring again?
Yeah, exactly. And they asked him if they could put anybody in his car, who would it be? And he said Joey Logano.
Wow.
I was 15 years old.
Yeah.
Obviously, I couldn't. That same weekend, I was racing in Mansfield, Ohio, in a Pro Cup car. I won the race, and so it was the perfect timing of he made the comment, I won the race. It was like boom, boom, and then Kenny, you wouldn't believe it. I was getting phone calls to come drive a race car for Chip Ganassi, for Joe Gibbs, and Roush. I had
That's unbelievable.
three written contracts on my desk, and it was me and my dad reading through them, saying, "What do we want to do?" This was not what you see today, where people have to come to the table with money to drive a race car.
You
I
were
was
that talented.
I was getting paid at 15 years old to drive a race car. That's nuts in today's world. And so to think of, I had these deals that were gonna. I had 3 years before I can go racing. They were gonna pay for all my racing. I was gonna get paid while I was 15 years old to go racing. Then I'm gonna drive an Xfinity car and go right in the Cup the next year. And this is what I'm gonna get paid for the next 7 years. This is what it is. And I had 3 deals that were all the same, just like that.
Do you think Mark Martin's voice helped that? Was it Mark Martin?
100%. Like
Wow.
100%. You couldn't say it any other way, because people respected Mark Martin that much, right? We respect his opinion, what he stood for on the racetrack, how he raced. People respect that guy. And so when he said my name, it was like, this guy must know. And so that was like the turning point for me. And like I said, that's nuts to think that can even happen. and so for me, the timing was perfect. That's when there was driver development programs going on where it was very important to develop the next driver, and everybody did that. And so people were looking, and I had the great opportunity. Joe Gibbs, I signed with them. They bought all our Pro Cup stuff. So they bought our trailer, our cars, everything. We moved into the Xfinity shop. That was a weird moment as we go rolling in with our, we had those Renegade haulers, right? And we come in like, all right, where do we put our stuff?
the Beverly Hillbillies are coming to town.
We hit the garage door on the way in, so we really did it. So okay.
The things we remember.
Yeah. And like everyone was looking at us like, I don't think they all knew, like everyone in the Xfinity shop there at Gibbs knew like what was going on. They're like, well, who are these people? And what are they unloading a race car here and everything else they have? I'm like,
this is great. Nobody never knew this.
Mm-hmm. So it's just a pretty incredible thing when you think about it, and that I only had to race, with racing, how it is, right? You got to have somebody funding it, obviously, especially as a kid, right? You're not getting sponsors that are doing this stuff. But I only had to do that till I was 15, right? I only had to race on my dad's dime, basically, until I was 15, which is just incredible today. So pretty special.